What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Art of War stream. This is our weekly build a list. It happens every single Friday, where we design a list from scratch for a particular faction that's going to be played live on stream the following week. And so the Necron list that I'm going to develop here is going to be played next Wednesday live on stream, so be sure to check it out. This one is going to be focused on Necrons, and I'm going to be designing a Canoptek Court list, which will go through all the different rules for it and start building a list. But before we dive in here, if you like this type of content, if you've been with us for a while and haven't subbed to the channel, please do click that subscribe button, tell your friends about us, give us a like on the video, and then also leave a comment below letting us know what you're most excited for with Necrons and you know, what you think of the list at the end of the video.
I'm really excited to see what we come up with.
Definitely.
Are we going to add 6 Catan?
We might do Settlers of Catan, but I don't think so. I don't think so. Not in this one. But in addition, if you want any additional content, we are doing tons of Necron and AdMech new Codex content in the War Room, thewarroom.vhx.tv. Additionally, you get access to our wonderful Discord community. And if you checked us out yesterday for Fix My List, if you want to be a War Room member and you subscribe, you can then get access to submitting your list for Fix My List. And very soon, probably in about 2 weeks or so, we'll be doing an episode for Xenos. And in that, we'll definitely be doing some Necron lists as well.
Excited for that.
All right, Mr. Quinton, are you ready to design a list? So
let's see it.
First thing is, in my opinion, Canoptek Court is the strongest.
I think so.
I read through all of them, you know, immediately. And then this is the one that popped out where, very similar to the Hunter cohort in AdMech, you just read all the strats and you're like, this is a full toolkit.
Turns out the lone-opping a unit is just really good.
Lone-opping, moving when you get close, having a really good damage strat, and then having a couple tech strats that the army has trouble accessing, like Ignores Cover. Super good. And then you also look at their enhancements. It's just a class above pretty much everything you're getting, where there's a bunch of auto takes.
Yeah, when we did the review, we were like, well, this one has some good enhancements, this detachment has a good rule, this one has some good stratagems, this one has a good rule, good enhancements, good stratagems.
Exactly. The detachment rule is basically what Chaos Demons get, but instead of being able to come closer to your opponent out of reserves, you get access to full rerolls to hit, which is enormously strong. And baseline, your Cryptek and Canoptek units just reroll ones to hit, so no need to have the Silent King around or any of the more expensive ways to get it.
And unlike a lot of other attachments, Cryptek and Canoptek is a fairly wide set of terms, because you get both whatever the Canoptek units are, but also any units that are joined by a Cryptek get that Cryptek keyword and benefit from this power matrix. Yeah. Whereas something like the Obeisance Phalanx can really only affect a handful of units.
100%. Yeah. So Cryptek, obviously, Lichguard no longer get Crypteks, so they kind of suffer here a bit. Maybe it's intentionally designed because this was one of the detachments, but Crypteks can still go in a couple key units, and those units are quite strong. But let's go ahead and break down why the Canoptek Court is strong first, and then we'll start designing this.
Sounds good.
So in the meanwhile, I will leave you on our lovely little baseline template here. So first of all, like I said, the detachment rule power matrix gives you access to, if you're wholly within your power matrix, your deployment zone is always within it, regardless of what's happening. Midfield, if you control at least half of the objective markers at the start of any phase. you get access to the rule down here, and then at the start of any phase in your opponent's deployment zone, if you control at least half the objectives there, you'll also make that within your army's power matrix.
If you're familiar with Chaos Demons, their Shadow of the Warp has the exact same rule.
Yep, but this one buffs the offensive output of the army, and that's something Necrons have been crying out for because their offense was okay-ish. It was on the lower side, especially in the brick warrior style. The offense was not particularly good. It was all about the defense and about the objective control. This army can help you with the objective control, but also brings an additional layer of offense. And full rerolls to hit is extremely strong in Necrons because there are a bunch of ways to get crit 5s, which means if you're, hitting on 3s usually, pretty much reroll everything, fishing for those 5s and 6s. And there's a lot of lethal hits, there's a lot of sustained hits in here that benefit a lot from this roll. So fantastic, and it means your units can operate independently if they need to. There's no crucial aura you have to be kind of stationed around. Then you have the enhancements. Dimensional Sanctum is straight up automatic. It is so good. Your
Infiltrate?
Yeah, you put it on a Cryptek. All these go on Crypteks. The Bears unit gains Infiltrate. So Technomancer goes in Wraiths, Infiltrate. It's awesome. You can tie up your opponent turn 1. You can threaten to just do any of the different actions that happen or control certain space on the board.
You can start your power matrix really early.
Exactly. So that one is just automatic. You don't have Scout with it, but Infil Scout isn't as needed in Necrons, in my opinion, but it would be delightful. Then Hyperphasic Fulcrum. This one, for the Bears unit, if they are within your army's power matrix, they get reroll 1s to wound. So this can help Wraiths, really punch, make sure they clear some chaff units or punch up a little bit extra. It's not essential, but it is a nice upgrade because, once again, helps the damage output, and that's something
certainly not bad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Auto Divinator. This one is if your opponent gains a CP via an ability, so something like Abaddon, the Wayleaper, any of the different things that help regen CP from a unit, like the Enhanced Data Tether and AdMech. On a 2-up, you just gain a CP. Now, Jack is skeptical on this one because less armies have it, but frankly, the thing is, this army loves CP. And if your opponent has an ability that gains CP, I really just like having this. So if there's an extra 15 points in, I really like this in this detachment because we're going to see one of the stratagems is 2 CP, and it's super good if you can spam it out. Then Metalodermal Tesla Weave does some random mortals if your enemy unit charges the bearer's unit. Meh, it's the worst one.
Yeah.
It's cute little tech, but it's the worst out of these. Then the stratagems. Curse of the Cryptek is if a Cryptek model dies, you can use the strat, and this is either in your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase. Until the end of the battle, each time a friendly Canoptek model makes an attack, that targets the enemy unit, +1 to hit, +1 to wound.
So if you have a random Cryptek that survives the unit dying, if you charge it into whatever your opponent's big that is, and they have to kill it, and you're like, cool, +1 to hit and wound against that for my whole army.
Yeah, it only works in your Canoptek stuff, so it's not Cryptek units as well, which would mean Immortals would benefit from it, which would be ludicrously strong. But still, your Wraiths, your Doomstalkers will benefit from this, potentially. Cynosure of Eradication. This one is very strong. This pumps up the damage. So start of your shooting phase or the fight phase, so a lot of flexibility there, is 2 CP, but 1 Cryptek or Canoptek unit that's wholly within your army's power matrix, which is quite easy to get with this army. Till the end of the phase, weapons equipped by models in your unit have dev wounds.
Hey Siegs, what kind of strat is that?
That is a battle tactic. So, yes, your opponent can increase the cost of it. Frankly, Vect abilities have become quite a bit less common.
Yes.
Since there aren't too many critical battle.
It's basically just like Armor, Contempt, and Profane Zeal.
Yeah, pretty much. So not everybody is tagging for it. So what does that mean? Well, it means the Overlord reduces stratagem costs to 0. Which...
Can you double up with the Overlord?
You can also double.
I see. I see. Okay.
So, you can do quite a bit of shenanigans and damage. Now, the reason this is particularly strong, it's fine on Wraiths.
Yeah.
Wraiths have a decent volume of attacks. You can give them, the reroll 1s to wound, and potentially you'll proc a decent extra number of dev wounds, just to make sure you've punched through a particular target. Not the most durable thing in the world, but something that Wraiths normally wouldn't kill. Now they might kill it. But Immortals with a Cryptek inside. You get the Plasmancer for the exploding 5s. You get the full rerolls from the from the Power Matrix. And then if the target's on an objective, Immortals get reroll wounds. So now your full rerolls to hit, fishing for 5s and 6s. Your full rerolls to wound, fishing for the 6s to wound. You're punching quite a bit up with this thing. This strat is fantastic, and it's one of the reasons that I really love this. Now, Jack doesn't build his Necron list around it. I am totally going to do that, because...
So we're going to be building an Immortal-heavy Canoptek Court.
We're going to build to abuse the heck out of this strategy, because the Necrons haven't been a damage army. This detachment can do the damage, and we're going to do it. So this is fantastic. Solar Pulse, once again, strat Jack doesn't really value highly. I value it enormously highly, because Necrons... an army that can hold objectives and do damage at the same time is a fantastic army. And this allows you to ignore cover on an enemy unit on an objective. So you select an objective that's within 18 area cryptic, doesn't have to be visible, which is fantastic. End of the phase, models equipped with weapons can ignore cover while targeting units on that objective.
Super strong.
Yep, your opponent,
super strong.
if they don't want to contest the objectives, you just win the game.
Yeah.
That's awesome, because you're going to be lone-opping on the objectives, so they really have to get close anyway. And if they're getting close, they might as well touch the objective. And if they're not touching those objectives, you're just scoring the primary. So that's fantastic. If they are touching it, then you can ignore cover. Now, Immortals can get access to Xeris' ability for +1 AP. So Tesla, normally no AP, +1 AP from that. Then you ignore cover. You're rerolling to wound. You got dev wounds in there. You're really killing a lot of even durable things in the game. At least putting a lot of saves on them. So great strat there. Then we've got the reactive subroutines. This one is for Canoptek units. It's in your opponent's movement phase just after they end a normal, advance, or a fallback. So they have to end it with a 9, which, ooh, they want to contest the objective. They're going to be within 9 of your units. And then you're like, all right, I moved 6. So the strat has a lot of shenanigans with it. Basically, you can be on the objective. Your opponent goes to contest it and wants to shoot you some amount behind the wall. They've already put enough OC on the objective, or they're about to. Let's just go behind the wall.
Oh, you can't shoot me anymore.
Can't shoot me anymore. Maybe we'll go right behind the objective, or just on the tip of it where their shooting can't reach. And then we're going to loan up with suboptimal facade. Or we go behind a different wall, or go onto a different objective, because their unit is strung out. There's a lot of shenanigans you can do with this thing.
Even just in the most basic sense, it means you can't ever make better than like a 9-inch charge into one of these units.
Yeah. It could also be the case where your opponent is planning to charge onto the objective. Maybe it's something that's relatively durable, but not that hard-hitting, that's going to put enough OC on the objective. And we're like, okay, you're getting close to us. I'm going to move up and fully block the objective.
Or I'm going to move off the objective.
Or fully off.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, maybe it'll still give them a charge, but you're like, I'm going to fully block it. Yeah. And then, or you bring a second Wraith unit that's hiding behind the ruin within 9 onto the objective. Like, there's infinite amount of shenanigans you could do with this, which is why it's such a good strat. Counter-temporal shift. This one is the lone op strat, so your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit selects targets. You pick a Canoptek unit, so it can't be Cryptic. If it could be Cryptic, wow, Immortals would be ludicrous, but it can be Canoptek, so big Wraith unit. Your opponent can't target it unless they're within 12.
That's pretty good. It's nuts.
Yeah.
Lone up on good units is just like insane. Yeah.
Insanely good. Then suboptimal facade is in your opponent's charge phase just after an enemy unit declares a charge. And Canoptek unit that's within your power matrix can activate its reanimation protocols.
This one's okay.
This one's okay. The reasons it would come up is if getting an extra model back would swing the primary, or potentially your opponent might, even if they swing up, kill your unit, kill the whole Wraith unit, and having an extra model back to tank will just break their back.
Yeah.
Then you could do suboptimal facade. But this suite of strats is fantastic. And once again, when you look at a detachment, if it has a great detachment rule, great enhancement, and also great stratagems.
And it supports some of the better units in the book.
And it supports some of the better data sheets. Like,
yeah. It's got everything.
This is the complete package. This is a very well-designed detachment, and one that has a lot of synergy and tricks. And it lets player skill be exercised. So Games Workshop, Stu, I am critical on you on some things, but you and your team did a fantastic job on the Canoptek Court. Kudos to you. This is super awesome.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like the ideal of what a detachment should be.
Let's go ahead and start designing this bad boy.
All right. So we're building a core of Immortals.
We're going to start with the Wraiths. This is Canoptek Court. But we are going to add Wraiths. So first thing we're going to do is the Technomancer is in here. Now, he can join Wraiths, which means he gives a 5 of Pheno Pain to Wraiths. They gained an extra wound, which they're 4 wounds apiece, 5 up Pheno Pain, 4 up Invuln, 3 up Save. They are very tanky. Now, they do have the limitation where they don't hit that hard. They struggle to punch up against things, even with the full rerolls. And if you give them the reroll ones to wound, they still aren't really killing anything that durable. But they can chip things down, and they can also do flyover mortals, which helps weaken something. Also, they're beasts, so they can go through walls. And the one downside here of adding a Technomancer is the Technomancer is infantry and will give the unit the infantry keyword, not the models.
Things like poison will...
So things that are anti-infantry will be more effective into the Wraith unit with the Technomancer, but worth sacrificing for the 5 of Pain. He doesn't have War Gear options anymore, but he is going to grab Dimensional Sanctum.
How many points is he?
He's going to be 80 points with Dimensional Sanctum.
All right, so 80 points
and
so far.
This is the Infiltrate. It is automatic. If you're running Canoptek Court, this should be the first unit you add. Technomancer, Dimensional Sanctum, and then 6 Wraiths, which we'll add right here. This is just a strong unit. Wraiths. And then it is going to be 220 points, so 280 for the unit. And we're going to give them the...
Or 300 now.
300 with the upgrade. And then we're going to give them the Claws and the Particle Caster, which is a pistol weapon. So if they're engaged in a protracted combat but still controlling the objective, they can do Cleanse and other stuff.
Homers or whatever.
Yep.
Having a pistol doesn't come up all the time, but you're very glad to have it when you do.
And it's a handful of dev wound shots, so we're gonna
chip the last.
Quite a bit of dev wounds.
Yeah.
All right. Next character is also going to be a Technomancer, because we want both Wraith units to have one. And in addition, we are going to grab... we're probably going to add the Auto Divinator, because like I said, the extra CP that you can gain is fantastic. Now, Necrons can totally do fixed here if you want to. If you end up bringing like a bunch of little Scarab units and all the little cheap stuff. So if we end up going for the cheap route, we can definitely do fixed. But if we don't and we go for tactical, then and we have more of a just a core of really strong units, we're probably going tactical in that case. And with the opportunity to discard cards for CP, then we probably don't need the enhancement. So I'm going to leave generic enhancement here right now and not put it in.
And we'll see if you have the points left.
Yes.
Yeah. A lot of times I do this where I have an enhancement. I'm like, this is nice to have, but I don't know if I want it. And it really just comes down to whether or not I need it.
All right. Next unit we're going to add is the Overlord with the Translocation Shroud, who is 85 points. He has a younger brother who is actually his older brother, because he's existed for longer, called the Overlord. And the Overlord might as well be Control-Alt-Deleted from this book because he is pointless. The Overlord with Translocation Shroud, on the other hand, has the exact same good roll, My Will Be Done, which reduces the cost of a stratagem once per battle round to 0. It can only be on battle tactics now based on the September update, but that means it can be used on the Cynosure of Erasure, which is the Dev Wound stratagem. And even if it's already been used on a different unit, so a different unit can go, all right, I'm going to go ahead and spend the strat. I do my damage. And the second unit's like, I want to kill this other thing super dead too, to make it free. Overlord man, kill them. And then in addition, so that's already just what the Overlords do. It's a good rule. You're going to have a Resorb with him, which is a nice little defensive buff, although not critical anymore. But the regular Overlord is -1 damage for himself. He's a greedy boy. That's useless. The Translocation Shroud, on the other hand, lets the unit flat advance 6.
That seems pretty good.
Tesla is an assault weapon.
It's an assault weapon.
Tesla.
They move 11.
So Tesla is an assault weapon, and let me triple check. Yep, assault sustained 2. It also gains 6 inches of range from 18 to 24.
Oh wow!
So the unit moves 11 inches, shoots you 24 from there, and does everything that possibly wants to do. That's just really, really good.
That seems really good.
So we're going to do that. So Overlord of Shroud is just in, and we're going to go ahead and grab a second one because we're greedy like that. We don't have to run a second one, frankly. We might end up switching the characters around. I'm going to add a second one in for now, but we're definitely having one. All right. What's up next? We're going to want Cryptex. So we got Cryptex in our Wraith units. Those are all good. We have 2 Overlords. We're going to need Immortals. So let's move these over here, and we're just going to copy this. I'm actually going to copy the whole thing. We're not adding more Wraiths. We are adding...
Immortals.
We're adding Immortals. So we totally could go to a third Wraith unit as well. I'm going to start with 2 because I think 2 is like exactly what you need. You could totally go for more. So, Immortals. And they're going to be 140 points. They're 70 for 5. And why is this one weird?
Oh, yeah, it's all caps.
Cool.
If you just have the cap locks on, it works.
Yep. All right, so that's going to be 140 points. And we're going to go with Tesla. And that's that. And that's because it's Assault. And the thing about this army is you can access Ignores cover, unlike other detachments. And we're probably going to add Illuminator Xeris in here for +1 AP. So +1 AP, Ignores cover. We don't really need the lethals. We want as many volume of shots as possible. And so we're going to go with the Plasmancer instead. The Plasmancer gives us crit 5s. So with full rerolls from the Matrix, from being in the Power Matrix, exploding 5s means every 5 and 6 to hit is 2 additional hits with sustained 2, and then we're going to be rerolling to wound against the target. So Plasmancer ramps up the damage of this unit, and we're going to go for damage because it's just a thing Necrons lack in general compared to other armies. This is our equivalent of the Aggressor Brick or whatever, Crisis units. Obviously a lot cheaper than that, but. So Plasmancer is in. He also does a bunch of random mortals, which is
nice.
Cool. And he's 55 points.
We're going to add 2 of these guys?
We're going to add 2. We're going to have 2 damage dealers that can just pop out and put our opponent.
So we are at 1140 with what is on the screen right now.
Yep. So the thing about there's a lot of options with Immortals, and I'm going to break down the other ones in just a second. But with Plasmancers, we're going for max damage. And that's where I want the mobility to make sure I hit the target that I want to, and do the damage that I want to, and the Overlords help with using that stratagem. And that means I can send 1 unit out, it can die in return, second unit then probably cripples their last real damage dealer, and from there, they're done. Now, the reason this is so impactful in this army is because the Wraiths go out on the objectives. You have threatened the Lone Op strat or the Move Away strat. If you move away, you don't have to commit your Immortals. If you commit your Immortals already, and the Wraiths aren't going to get hit by everything in your opponent's army, or they're only going to get hit by things that get within 12 of you because you have that Lone Hop strat, things are already in your firing lanes. And then the Immortals pop out and just obliterate them. And then the second unit of Wraiths pops out, does the same thing. So we're playing the relay shell game of how much do you want to commit to kill these Wraiths? Because you're probably not going to have high enough OC to mess with it. And if you do, we're going to get rid of those units early and then go from there. But you come in within 12 of the Wraiths. Now you're wide open in the firing angle for the Immortals to shoot you because we can move 11 if we want to. And we're going to blow up your key damage dealers if they want to get within range of the Wraiths. You're not going to have many units that just blow up Wraiths. Not many lists are going to have that.
It's basically just like Crisis Suits.
Crisis Suits do it awesome.
The Aggressors probably do it.
Yeah, because the problem with Phantasming a Wraith Guard is 4 up invuln, 5 up pain. Like, you're just not...
Jack and I did the math. The answer is like you get 2 or 3. It's like not actually that good.
It's not great. They're going to reanimate another one and be back there. And still it's just annoying. So there's only a handful of units that can realistically do enough damage into them. And if they get within 12 and they don't have Crisis Suit level of Strike and Fade, they're cooked.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a strong core. Let's go through the other options for Immortals because we could totally add more here. So the other cryptex we could add is we could add the Chronomancer, who I particularly like a lot. And that's because he gives the unit -1 to hit, so it makes them extra durable. It's both shooting and combat. And more crucially than that, gives them a fire and fade.
Yes.
So after they shoot, they can make a normal move. And the thing that's really impactful about that is you can either get onto an objective after you move up, or you can get back behind terrain. So you have the flexibility to do either of those things.
Yeah, fire and fade is something I use a lot in my my Eldar, and I go forward more than I go backwards with it these days.
Yep, and especially because this unit's probably either going to be the first thing that steps out and goes ahead and does some... This is the unit that can step out, if it has the Chronomancer instead of the Plasmancer, it can step out and can clear a chaff unit.
Yep.
It can clear a medium, maybe like 5 Marines or something like that, pretty reliably. But it's not going to punch up into something. That's what we'll use the Plasmancer units for. So it can step out, and then not exposing any of our Overlord Plasmancer combos. They stay behind terrain. They wait it out. We clear this, get back behind terrain. And I really like that combo. So this can be our first activation, and it very safely can go there. Or it can be, we advance the unit up, we want to get on the objective because we don't want to commit Wraiths for some reason. Or it's late game and we want them to stand on the objectives. So there's a lot of flexibility there with the Chronomancer combo. All right, other options. We could put Orican in there. There's no reason to put a 4-up invuln on these guys, especially if we bring a Luminar Xeris, who, let's stop kidding around. We're going to bring a Luminar Xeris.
He's 160?
He's 160 now.
He's everything Call wants to be.
He is better than Call and cheaper than Call by like such a dramatic margin. It's ridiculous. So, Illuminar Xeris. Okay, and the reason that we're running him is he buffs these Immortals further to the hilt, and we're just going for that damage. He also buffs their defense,
which is quite important.
Immortals with just 10 bodies at TA5, 3-up save, is not particularly impressive. That most armies can kill. Maybe not in one activation, but they'll pretty much...
Well, you don't come back like to the 9s anymore.
Yeah, you don't, but we're going to try. We're going to honestly try. So the thing about this with a Luminar Xeris is he gives them Armor of Contempt if they're within 3. That's reducing AP by 1. So if they're AP1, they go to AP0, AP2 goes to AP1, AP3 goes to AP2, and then cover. And most weapons in the game don't ignore cover. Mm-hmm. So then that's basically another type of Armor of Contempt in there. So if they're AP2 and don't ignore cover, now I'm taking 3-ups. Even against AP3 that doesn't ignore cover, I'm taking 4-ups. Like, it gets ludicrous. Like, Quinn was shooting at Immortals with his Wraithguard, and I was still taking saves.
Yeah, not at like 5-ups.
I was taking 5-ups, and he was just like, what is going on? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, you can make these guys very tanky, so when you finally do step out with your army, you can hold on to quite a bit of your models.
And the first, like, D3 that die don't really die, because they just come back.
And like I said, I like his offensive buff. +1 EP in most of the detachments, especially on Tesla, doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Because your opponent's going to get cover, and it's irrelevant. So you don't need the +1 AP on Tesla.
Yeah.
It matters a bit more on the Gauss, but we're not building towards this in this detachment. So why would I want the +1 AP here? Because once again, it combos with the ignores cover strat that this detachment has. Mm-hmm. So extra AP, ignores cover. When you stack that, even if they're a 2-up save body,
you start really taking a bunch of 3-up saves.
Plus all the dev wounds. So the mortals really punch up in a significant way when you add a Luminar in here. And then finally, he is a Cryptek, so he benefits. He does a random amount. He does an okay amount of damage. He can like finish off something. So he benefits from the detachment rule too. Okay, and he's pretty durable. He's a lone op when he's near them, and he's a Feel No Pain 4+, and he's got a 4-up invul, 9 wounds, 2-up save. He's pretty tanky. All right, so Illuminar Xeris is in. Okie doke. He'll be the Warlord because he is awesome, but we could make one of the Overlords. It doesn't really matter in this edition as much. So, let's go ahead and grab the third Immortal squad because Immortals is what I love. And I've been playing Immortals for several months now. Quentin knows that better than anybody. I have been experimenting with Immortals before the Codex came out, and the fact that they're dramatically better just means that all the reps I put into playing Immortals is even more valuable.
Yes.
So that's where I'm like bringing a lot of... You might be thinking like, okay, Immortals just became good with this Codex. They were good before. They were actually viable. Now, top players for Necrons typically weren't playing them, but I felt that they were better than Warriors, specifically because the top armies had 6 aggressors with Bolter Discipline that eviscerate you. The 6-man Crisis team eviscerates you. There were a lot of tough matchups with 20 Warriors. Hearthguard just obliterate you. There were a bunch of matchups that existed where if you show up with your 20 Warriors, you just straight up auto-lose. That's it. You put your Warriors on the objective. As soon as you do, one activation kills them, and you cry. So I was trying to build a list that didn't insta-die to those type of armies, and Immortals was the option, and they were pretty solid. They weren't like world beaters, now they're world beaters. Yeah. So we're going to get the third unit in here. Could be Gauss, but I'm going to go for Tesla, because once again, like I said, the Tesla just benefits this army a lot. And we're going to grab a Chronomancer, because like I said, 2 of these Plasmancer units is enough. We don't really need to go for more than that. That should be enough. We're going to go for the Chronomancer instead, because he is going to give us that opportunity to just do a little bit, kill our chaff. If they try and contest the objective with high OC, we stick this unit out, kill it, get back behind terrain, and we're done.
Yep. We have 510 points remaining.
All right, we still have a lot. You might be saying, this is a lot of characters. This is Assassinate territory. Totally. Go ahead and pick Assassinate. Pick it. Don't care. Don't care. You're going to pick Teleport Homers? Cool. You're not going to get my deployment zone, because we're going to build some chaff into this list to block that space. And then if you want to do the center, my Wraiths are going to eat you up.
Every turn.
Every single turn, and I'm going to move block the spot you want to do it. This is something I do with Tau. Tau gives up auto bring it down. I have like 53 bring it down points or something ludicrous. So even if they don't deal with crisis suits at all and they just kill some devilfish, they're still getting bring it down for 20 probably. They might have to work a little extra hard for it towards the end, but they're getting close to it anyway. This, you're probably going to get it. Now you might not, because the Immortals are going to be strung back in a more defensive role. You'll definitely kill the 2 Technomancers if you get through the Wraiths. But if you got through the Wraiths and then are just dead, you're not getting the other characters.
Yep.
So it's another situation where on the surface, they will just take Assassinate because they're like, you have so many characters, they're going to die at some point. And I'm like, are they going to die? Really depends on your list and how I play. Okay. So that concern out of the way. The other options we could go for that I didn't mention was the Psychomancer. He is much improved. He can do a lot of Battleshock-esque shenanigans that are, quite strong nowadays. Something Tyranid-esque. It doesn't have an army buff on top of it like the Neurolictor does, which is why he isn't seen. And second of all, it doesn't have the Lone Op keyword. If he had Lone Op, I would throw 3 in here and just play OC shenanigans all day, every day. But because he doesn't, I think that I've found it kind of hard to get him into my lists because he's just kind of hanging around, and that
he just dies.
He just dies. He's not great by himself. Like I said, he is just doing the Battleshock shenanigans, and I don't think it's worth spending the 55 points each time to get him. So, because you really want at least 2 to do the reliable Battleshock stuff, possibly 3. And he's just not as good as a Neurolictor because he doesn't have that Lone Op keyword. If he did, totally would be in here. Okay, we could add Catan here. Absolutely could. The Nightbringer would be my first choice to add.
I think he's the best.
I think he's the best as a one-off. The Void Dragon does have a consideration because he helps punch up against vehicles, which is nice, and he also has that extra healing. So he's an option here. Transcendent for teleporting, although it's still pretty pricey. And let's look at some other options. We could get a Lone Op with the Hexmark Destroyer. I just don't like the Hexmark Destroyer for his points, frankly, and I don't really care about Lone Opping because
You have the strat.
I have the strat, and I have a lot of bodies on the board, so I'm not as concerned about that. Okay, other tech pieces we could add. Flayed Ones have Infiltrate as well, so we can have Infiltrators on 2 different areas of the board. That's definitely something to consider. Death Marks have Native Deep Strike, and can do a little bit of shenanigans, but meh. Okay, Crypto Thralls. Ranked them is terrible. They did get a huge decrease. This is the one list I could see actually running them. The reason is because, yes, they're a little pricey, but you get 2 more ablative wounds in your unit, each with 3 wounds. So against damage 2 weapons that are coming in, or a bunch of 1 damage shots, you can actually tank a decent amount when you run Illuminator Xeris because their bodies will also benefit from the -1 AP and from cover. And you could take a decent amount of extra damage on them.
Things like Night Spinners don't really want to see that in front.
Exactly. The Crypto Thralls also help you string back to Illuminator Xeris or onto the, closer to the objective. And they also help the unit punch up a bit in combat because they get Illuminator Xeris' combat buff as well.
In my game at WCW against Necrons, I had 2 Crypto Thralls kill a Night Spinner in combat. Over like 4 battle rounds.
So it totally can happen. Not that it's realistic, but this means the reason that this is impactful in this particular list is not only does it benefit from Xeris, but also it means that killing the Immortals in one go is actually quite difficult, which means you probably get to activate the Resorb and will probably get a reanimation. And if you even bring back like half a unit, like maybe 5, 6, 7, that's still going to do a lot of damage.
Oh, yeah.
With a Sinister of Erasure. So these things, not as good as before. They're not going to tank infinite amounts of damage and make your opponent pull every single piece of hair they have on their head out. But what they will do is make sure that killing the unit in one go is very difficult, and that is what we're going for.
Okay.
So I might add these guys in. I'm just going through the options here of what we could possibly do. Tomb Blades, we're definitely getting at least 1 unit of Tomb Blades in.
I like Tomb Blades a lot. How many points are they?
They are 75 points, and we're going to add the stealth on here.
The Shadow Loom or whatever?
Yeah, I believe it's the Shadow Loom. So it's going to be 75 points for 3 of them, and they gained that 12 inches of movement and also have Shoot and Scoot. And we're going to have the particle casters on them, or particle beamers. So that's another dev wounds. This army can do a ludicrous amount of dev wounds, which is super nice. And these guys have that fire and fade, so they can chip off the last couple wounds, get back behind terrain safely. They have a 9-inch scout move, which really helps for area denial purposes. Maybe I don't want to put the wraiths in the center immediately, and I want something else to do that. These guys can do it, or they can just hang out on the flanks as well. And they're relatively fast to get up and do other things pretty easily. So 1 unit of Tomb Blades for sure. Let's see, what else do we have? Ophidians go back into reserve. It's cute. It's pricey. I don't think it's needed. Even though I'm probably going to take Tacto more often than not, I still don't want this 100-point unit sitting in my backfield for, sitting in reserve, then sitting in my backfield. Just... It's not really that great. We're trying to win the game based on primary, not trying to score all of our secondary cards. Because if we discard one for a CP, it means more dev wounds, basically. Locust Destroyers, they are legitimately good, whether as an actual damage dealer or as a solo unit. Because you can run them in one-mans and they're 30 points. It's a very cheap chaff unit thing to have. It can come in from reserve and just do investigate signals and screen out your backfield. So that's definitely something that's in my mind. And we could even run the unit because it's one of those units like Scorpex that now just has full rerolls to hit if you're shooting at a unit on an objective. Okay, most enemy units that I care about are going to be on the objectives. They're going to be on the objectives. If they're not, I'm winning. So if they are on the objectives, they get full rerolls. You can put the Locust Lord in here for crit 5s.
Yep.
Full rerolls to hit, crit 5s. They don't have to interact with the army rule because they have this data sheet upgrade. And then they do a reasonable amount of lethal hits at string 5 AP2, 2 damage.
I like them when I play them.
It's not bad. And 1 CP in this detachment, they can they ignore cover? Or is it only a Cryptek unit? Let me see if it's...
If they can ignore cover, they're actually just really good.
Let us see what the restriction is. It's probably a Cryptek unit. 1 Cryptek model from your army. Select 1 objective marker within 18 of your Cryptek model. Till the end of the phase, weapons equipped by friendly Necron models.
They sure do. They sure are Necrons.
They sure are Necron models. So they could totally be in here as another shooting activation that can do quite a bit of damage. There's a good question here in chat about why not bring the Royal Wardens, which are much improved, and I really like them. They're also 40 points. So the Royal Warden is, I was going to get back to him because this last unit doesn't have an Overlord and just has a Chronomancer. So it's the perfect case to bring out a Royal Warden. So the Royal Warden gives you fallback, shoot, and charge, which is very strong, especially if the Chronomancer unit is the one that goes out first and possibly stands on the objective, or is the one that we at least want to maybe do a charge move with tie up an enemy unit. Then we can still fall back, shoot, and charge. So 40 points, fantastic. We will come back to him and see if he can slot into this third unit, since he can go in with the Chronomancer. All right. Let's see. So Locust Destroyers, I do like them. Reanimator. Okay. He was also rated quite lowly, and that's because in most lists, he is too slow to really buff what Necrons are trying to do nowadays.
3 inches is just not...
However, my Immortals are going to be within 3 of Illuminator Xeris. It's pretty darn easy to make them also within 3 of the Reanimator, and Immortals, a bunch of 1-model units, really like rolling an additional D3.
Yeah, 2d3 means that you get most of the unit back.
And plus the Res Orb.
Yeah.
So you can, if they don't kill the unit, once again, why I don't mind Crypto Thralls as much in this particular detachment or this list design, they don't kill the whole unit because the Crypto Thralls tank some extra damage, or even if you just have 10 Immortals, they don't kill the whole thing. There's 2 left. All right, boom, 2 left. They're not able to put any more damage into you, and then all of a sudden you activate at the end of the phase the Res Orb, your command phase, D3, additional D3 on those from the Reanimator. You get basically a unit back. And that's very strong, because it's kind of backbreaking for your opponent with how much damage Immortals can do nowadays. So I actually like the Reanimator in this style list, and he will go in.
How many points is he?
75 points now. He's a little bit cheaper than he was. Decently cheaper, but not insanely cheap. But if you're already designing a list that wants to be within 3 of a particular model, having another model there is not the end of the world.
Not at all.
And if we don't expect them to really kill the Immortals, it can just advance up to where the Wraiths are.
You can loan up it, just put it on a point.
Yep.
It's also got 6 wounds and a 4 fuel no pan. It's not free to kill.
Nope. And if his aura is entirely irrelevant because our opponent really doesn't do much damage, is it just a control list? It'll just stand on the flanks.
Yeah.
go, our friends. Canoptek Scarab Swarms. Fantastic unit with the datasheet upgrade, where if it's within 6 of a Cryptek model, Crypteks are going to be in the middle of the table because of the Wraith units. They get OC1. So
That's
now,
a huge deal.
Huge deal. We don't have to put the Wraiths out there. We can put the Scarabs out and just delay our opponent for a little bit if we want to. But they can also secure no man's land and do all that stuff as well if you want it. And for 40 points, they're pretty darn cheap. They can also just sit in the corners of your deployment zone.
Investigate signals or whatever, yeah.
Yep. So them and Locust Destroyers kind of act in a similar thing, the solo Locusts. 30 points versus 40 points. You get some extra wounds here. These guys want to be more towards the center of the table. The Locusts do the screening of the corners quite well.
Yeah.
Okay, Spiders. Very good. We're definitely getting a Spider in here.
Spider. How many points is the Spider?
75 as well.
Okay, so we are at 17-15. At one point in my life, I knew things that happened that year.
So Canoptek Spider, why are we taking him? Well, first of all, it benefits from the Canoptek rules. He's got 2 particle beamers, so more dev wound access. More dev wound access. He hits decently hard in combat. He's relatively durable, and then he gives your vehicle units a 6 of Phenopain, which that's not what this list is doing. More importantly, he gives your units 5 of Phenopain against mortals and psychic attacks. So mortal wounds is something that can actually chip through the immortals pretty quickly.
Yeah, so like Doom Bolt to you or grenade strat, tank shock, things like that.
Precisely. Now, the Technomancer is going to already help those, so he is really here to help buff the Immortals so that they can soak up mortal wounds as needed, and he's also just a relatively cheap thing that can kind of float around.
Are we doing Super Chats now or at the end?
We will do the Super Chats all at the end, so no problem. If you do Super Chat, we will answer them all together at the end. Okay, so I like a Canoptek Spider specifically because Immortals are 1 wound and do suffer from mortals. He at least helps. And once again, we're just trying to prevent our opponent from killing a whole brick. Wraiths, we already talked about. Fantastic. We have 2 of them. Doomstalker is definitely another option in this detachment. Full reels to hit does make it quite tasty because it can be used on its Overwatch on 5s as well as its normal shooting. You can lone op it, and it's pretty decently durable and has a solid enough gun, especially because you can access Ignore's cover once again on an objective. It's 135, so not the cheapest thing in the world, but certainly a consideration here for us. We might throw 1 in here.
Its Overwatch with 4 reels to hit is also not nothing.
I think if we go for... so my personal opinion is that I prefer Immortals. Immortals, 140 for 10. You do have to spend extra on the character support, but it's worth it in my opinion. Whereas for the Doomstalker, it can act solo very well, and it can just hang out on the flank. I think the Doomstalker works better on like UKTC terrain, where there's like 6 firing angles on the table. You can fire down the one flank, the other flank. You can fire through, side angles if you come in from reserve. On GW terrain, there's maybe 1 firing angle that goes across the table. Sometimes not even that. So not getting as much value, and it's a really big base, so it's a little bit awkward to fit it wholly on terrain to shoot through it. So I've found on US Open terrain that it's a little tricky to get the full value of the Doomstalker, and most opponents aren't going to try and get into the Necron half of the board, especially against this list. So they're not going to literally put their army in front of all your Immortals and be like, can you kill me? And I'm like, yes, I did. You're dead. Get out of here. So they're not going to do that against this list. They might do it against other Necron lists that are less damage dealing, but they're not going to do it here. So once again, they're not going to walk into where I can easily shoot them. So I don't know if the Doomstalker is really worth it in this archetype. Not Canoptek Court, but specifically the Immortal build. All right, Annihilation Barge, Doomsday Arc, meh. All this other stuff is meh. Yeah, cool. All right. That's the end of that. So now we have to decide, do we want Catan? So other things that can stand on objectives. I'm not going to max the Wraiths here because I want more stuff. You can totally just run 18 Wraiths and
this is good. Yeah.
But I'm not going to do that because I want to lean a little bit more towards on Necron damage dealing.
I'm very pro...
Yeah, what's your opinion here?
I think we should have the Nightbringer. I'm very pro Nightbringer
for
a couple reasons. The first is another durable thing that can go and kind of brawl in the center with the Wraiths. 2 is that he doesn't rely on a stratagem or being an immortal to do damage. He just hits really hard by himself, and he's something you can be like, cool, I need that, insert durable tank, dead, I'm going to just go kill it with my D6 plus 2 damage sweeps, high AP, I have a good gun, just like go and then do some Mortals in the center. I really like the Nightbringer.
We're bringing the Nightbringer.
Yeah.
Quinn, you're my star. You're my staff of stars. We're gonna bring it.
How many points is the El Nightbringer, man?
255.
255. He's so cheap for what he gives you.
Yep.
So we have 30 points remaining.
Okay. Well, 30 points. We can play around with the points here. So he's 255. Okay. So we don't have too many things that want to hang out on the flanks on this list. Not too many at all. So we can play around with the points here and try and do that, or we just don't care if our opponent goes on the flanks. Now, if we're taking tactical, we want at least some things.
Yeah.
So we have the Tomb Blades. The Spider can go out there if we don't need him.
Reanimator too.
The Reanimator can totally go out there if we don't need him. So those are our, like, meh, where they'll go out and do anything.
Yeah.
This is why the Nightbringer is a lot of points, because he's one model in one place. So if we're going for him, but we're going for damage here. So let's just
he just punches you in the face.
Let's just bring the Nightbringer, and we're going to bring a Locust Destroyer.
Solo Locust Destroyer?
Yep.
Call it a day. Is he 30?
He is exactly 30.
It's 2,000 on the nose.
2,000 on the nose. Locust Destroyer friends. And he is going to be a little action monkey and do his own thing. So if we didn't go for the Nightbringer here, I would probably add the Royal Warden into the Chronomancer unit, and I would probably go for 3 solo Locust Destroyers, 3 units of Scarab, like just a ton of trash units all over the place, so that I could do a cleanse homers situation. But if we're going for damage here, which we already have 3 Immortal units, we got 2 Wraith Bricks, we're bringing the Nightbringer as well, and he can control the objective away. What you generally want to do with this type of army, because you're stringing back to Xeris and the Reanimator, most likely, possibly the Spider, is you want to control the triangle. You want to control your home objective, which is easy, control the center, and control one of the other midfield objectives. Don't get aggressive and try and control all the objectives. Pick the 2 in the center and your home objective and make it a triangle. The other objective, you want to be able to potentially shoot with the 11-inch moving Tesla Immortals and kill your opponent off of there. And then the Nightbringer is the person who can sit between that objective and the center, and he can go stand on it, control it by himself, and kill stuff off of it each turn. Or he can come back and help the center, is how I'm going to think about the control in this type of list. All right. Anything else, any of your other thoughts here?
This list looks terrifying. I kept trying to, like, I was like, well, what do my armies do against this? And I was like, well, my Death Guard just die, and my Eldar can't kill it. So, oh boy, this is a nasty list.
It's definitely nasty. And the thing is, like, what was typical against Necrons previously was threat overload. Is you get up into their face, you tie up their units away from objectives, and you stop them from doing things. Well, guess what? The units you're trying to tie up here are 2 Wraith Bricks and the Nightbringer. They're the first layer. If you try and tie them up, and I'm like, okay, cool, you maybe tied them up away from objectives, I'll just fall back onto the objective, or I'll use my strat to move with the Wraiths to get away from you. And then I'll just blow up all that stuff with the Immortals. I'll still be in the middle of the table, and I can even just scream with the Chronomancer unit to stop you from hitting the other 2. The other 2 will just keep tabling you. So, unlike a lot of Necron, I think people will have to get used to playing against this archetype, because they're going to be used to Necrons, lol, they don't do any damage, I can just walk up and just tie up their stuff and start charging and stand on objectives, and it's going to be fine. And if you run 3 Wraith units and just a lot of trash, you could probably still do that against them. But as soon as you start running the Immortal Bricks with the max damage potential, you're going to get picked up at a pace that is lightning speed, and you're going to not have much stuff late.
I am shocked at how hard those Immortals hit to, like, every target.
Everything. It doesn't matter. This is the strongest hitting Necron list by, like,
a mile.
Like, yeah.
The other an extra A in Overlord.
What's that?
It's Overlord.
Oh, the Lord.
The Lord.
He's lording over you.
I was gonna say, he's was he Scottish? The Lord.
The Overlord. But thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah.
So. I'm going to be really excited to run this list. Like I said, build a list. We design the list live on stream, and then we play it next week on Wednesday in the live YouTube battle report. So please do join us 1 p.m. Eastern Time next Wednesday. This will be played live on stream, and I'm super excited. I forget what army it's being played into, honestly.
I can find out right now.
Let's find out what army it's going to be played into.
You go check our master schedule.
Who is going to be my victim? Is it Quinn's Eldar?
It might actually be.
It would be fantastic.
It is the Thousand Suns.
Jack's Thousand
Jack's
Sons.
Thousand Sons.
Oh, 2 armies that want to do outrageous amounts of damage.
Wow, that is going to be a lethal bloody game.
That is going to be a very bloody game.
Yes.
So I'm hyped on that. Excited to see it. This is the list.
All right.
Thanks again for joining me, Mr. Quinn. Hope everybody enjoyed this one. We're going to go through the super chats now, but if anybody tunes out now, please do give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell your friends about us, and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought of the list, whether you're excited for that Wednesday game, and what you're most excited for in the new Necrons Codex. I know a lot of people have been down on it, which is surprising to me because I think it's dramatically stronger than the previous book and has more variation in playstyle.
I think it's just like a dramatic improvement on every front.
Yep, it fits more with my playstyle, which is I want to have a couple durable units, which I totally do in this army, but I also want to be able to do some damage. It plays more like my Mephrit list from the end of 9th edition, where the army was designed to do a good amount of board control and then also damage.
Yeah.
And I like Necron lists that can do both of those things, and I definitely think this list can do it. So excited for that. So let's go through the super chats.
I think we just had the one.
Just the one? Okay.
Just the one.
So, $5 super chat from Mr. Dreadclown. Can Necron's playstyle be durable threat overload, Cursed Cultists, with a second wave of elite fighters to fight / gunline? Need a backup to CSM?
So basically, can Necrons play similarly to how the Manny Chima's WCW winning list plays?
You absolutely can do it. You can still put Orkin in a warrior unit. The thing is, a Cursed Cultist never came back as fast as Warriors did. Warriors basically could come back instantly.
Immediately, yeah.
But frankly, if you do run Warriors are a large enough unit to string back to a Reanimator. So you can still run the Reanimator. You can still run the Ghost Ark. You can still put Orkin in there for the 4-up invul. You can decide which detachment you want to run. Awakened Dynasty, you can still get the Stealth, which does help their durability quite a bit. Is there a defensive upgrade you can put in the Hypercrypt?
I don't think so.
No. There's
Hypercrypt, you can just upgrade.
You can -1 to hit in combat, but you have to run an over. No. Not really doing that. You can put the Chronomancer in a different unit as well. Yeah. And that lets you shoot and scoot and get -1 to hit and shooting in combat. So that's an option as well. So you can still make them pretty darn durable. The difference is they don't go from 20 models and 2 Crypto Thralls back to 20 models and 2 Crypto Thralls.
Yeah. It used to be if you hit Warriors, you get them down to 1 guy and you're like, dang it. And then by the time your next unit activates, there are 20 dudes.
There are 20 dudes. Yeah. So it's not going to get you back that closely. However, if you string them all back, you can still heal them back up if the unit doesn't die and get them back activating 2 turns later. 2 turns, your turn, your opponent's turn, and then after that. So you'll get them back to relatively full. So you could still play that style. It has exactly the same weaknesses as the Accursed Cultist list, which is
a bunch of guys, a bunch of bullets.
Yep, if your opponent has a ton of bullets and can just pick it up, you will just keep losing your unit and not get to use the reanimation rules that it has. Yep. But it definitely is, you could replicate the CSM style with this. If you wanted to add something that was Forge Fiend-esque, but not quite as good, nearly as good, you would probably run this detachment and run the Doomstalkers, and they can fill a similar-ish role. Yeah. Obviously not as good as Full Real Estate Moon Forge Fiends.
Forge Fiends are broken, so...
They're just undercosted and silly. Yeah. That stratagem especially is just silly. So you can do something similar in this detachment with full reels to hit Canoptek Doomstalkers to be that longer range punch. Or you can just play pure board control and put as many layers of bodies out there as you want. So it's definitely possible with Necrons. It's not as strong as CSM because CSM can take a 5-man unit with a character that's relatively cheap and have it kill most things in the game. Yeah. That's not Necrons. The Mortals are your best punch-up killing type of machine, but that's not really playing like a Cursed Cultist. Yeah. We got a $2 super chat from Mr. Chris Joyner. Thank you so much, Chris. What changes do you make if you have 3 Tomb Sentinels? If you want the Sentinels, then you probably are going for the Jack style.
Yeah, which is like
durable threat overload on the objectives.
So you take more Catan, more Wraiths.
Yeah. Exactly. So you take the Tomb Sentinels, you've got the Wraiths, you've got then also... You just want to be able to push your army into the center and be like, you're never controlling objectives in the center. I'm going to win primary by such a dramatic margin. And then you have a couple cheap units around the outskirts that can score you some amount of secondary points that aren't revolving around the middle control. But you just dominate primary. So absolutely works in threat overload. So multiple Catan, multiple Wraith units, that type of thing.
The next two super chats basically are asking the same question.
Yep. So thanks so much to Relic Scuppin. And then Overlord Trafford. Thank you so much for both your super chats. Where do we build around Zarek? I am fingers crossed hoping that Games Workshop realizes that he's the leader of the Triarch and gets the Triarch keyword. And then his best attachment is clearly the Obeisance Phalanx.
-1 damage.
Because he can get -1 damage. And just yesterday I released a game of me playing the Obeisance Phalanx in the Worm.
Mm-hmm.
And in there, I played the -1 damage Silent King against Knights. And let me tell you, John had a bear of a time dealing with -1 damage Silent King. So he is super annoying to deal with when you throw -1 damage on him. And that is his best attachment. If he can access the +1 to wound, he becomes so much stronger in there. But at baseline, he also on his combat gets crit 5s on his lethals, which is cool as well for 1 CP. So I think that's his best attachment. He also buffs the units that want to be in there quite significantly, because his aura, his 6-inch aura of reroll 1 to hit and wound, is no longer ranged attack restricted. It also works on combat. So not necessarily Immortals, Lichguard and Triarch Praetorians both really like rerolls in addition to the +1 to wounds, and they like being around the Silent King as well. So I think he works best in that detachment, and I just really hope that they recognize that he is the Triarch, so he should have that keyword.
He really should.
He's literally on the image for the detachment, so they intend him to be taken here. He's the leader of the Triarch. He should just have the Triarch keyword, or they should add into the detachment rule each time an Overlord, Lichguard, or Triarch unit, instead add or Silent King, because he has the Silent King keyword.
Mm-hmm.
Just give it to him.
Yep.
And then that detachment still isn't as strong as Canoptek Court, but the Silent King feels real good in there. And Silent King feeling real good, definitely something I love.
Mm-hmm.
$5 super chat from Takshik. Thank you so much. Before the Codex, you were looking at the Arcing Lot list. Are you still looking to play that list, or is the Codex just giving us better options? It's definitely giving us better options.
I think this Canoptek Court list is just way better.
I did try out the Arcing Lot in some practice games, and the problem is that we mostly play on US Open tournament format.
Mm-hmm.
And in that format, shooting through the center is basically not something that happens.
Yeah.
And in order to do it, even to shoot into the center on layout 1 of US Open terrain, you have to be wholly on terrain because there's very narrow firing angles. And putting the Doomsday Arc or a Canoptek Doomstalker wholly on terrain is basically impossible.
Yeah, the models are like a Subway sandwich.
Frankly, for units that are that weird shape, the Triarch Stalker is another one. They really should just have the Titanic rule. They should just make that a little more expansive where you can tow in with those type of weird units, because getting them wholly on terrain is frankly impossible.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. So they're not able to shoot through as effectively as possible. So I think what they did with the Titanic keyword is fantastic. I think they should make it a little more expansive to some of the more weird shaped large units to make them more effective on the terrain density of 10th edition, is my opinion.
Yeah, 10th is super dense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think it works at all. on that format. If you play on casual terrain that's relatively light, it totally works.
Yeah.
If you're playing terrain that has big firing angles that go across the table, then it totally works. But outside of that, it's tough. All right. That looks to be all the super chats.
Looks great.
Thank you so much, everybody. Like I said, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about us, and also leave a comment below letting us know what you think of the list and whether you're excited for the game, and also what you're most excited for with Necrons. I definitely read all the comments, so please do leave them there. And otherwise, we really appreciate everybody's support. This game will be played Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time next week, live on stream against Jack's Thousand Suns, which are freshly painted from a magician, Mr. Cass himself.
Beautiful, beautiful army.
Really looking good, and hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you all next time, and have a great weekend. So long for now.